Santa Clara woke up with the kind of news that does not have to scream to hit Niners fans right in the chest. An undrafted player might become a real pass rush answer. A veteran weapon is sitting there as a very tempting possibility. Mykel Williams gives a sign of life away from the main field, and Raheem Morris finally lets us hear the voice of this new defense. This is not a dead offseason. This is pressure building. Hit that like button and let's get into it, because every detail today feels like a hidden decision waiting to happen. The first story today does not come with a giant stage, a massive contract, or the kind of noise that takes over the whole week. It comes from the bottom of the roster, where the NFL sometimes hides some of its most dangerous stories. Mikail Kamara, the undrafted edge out of Indiana, was picked by Nick Baumgardner of The Athletic as the 49ers' undrafted free agent to watch. And I love this story because it forces the fan base to stare at a problem San Francisco cannot just dress up: pressure on the quarterback. Let's be honest, a team with Super Bowl ambition cannot finish last in the NFL in sacks and then act like it was all just bad luck. Injuries mattered, absolutely. Losing key players changes everything. But the search for a steady complement to Nick Bosa has been going on for far too long. Every year, Santa Clara looks for that edge rusher opposite Bosa, who is not just another rotation name, but someone who can bother tackles, squeeze the pocket, and turn third down into panic for opposing offenses. That is where Kamara comes in as the kind of bet that does not cost much, but could shake up the room if training camp starts talking loud. Baumgardner pointed to his lack of size and long speed as part of the reason he went undrafted. But he also highlighted his short area quickness, strong hands, and a motor that never seems to shut off. That matters. Pass rush is not only about looking fast in a straight line, it is about winning half a step, using your hands, attacking inside, surviving contact, and fighting even when the block looks like it is already won. The numbers show why people are curious. Kamara had 10 sacks during his junior year at Indiana, then dropped to just 2 last season. That dip, along with the physical limitations, hurt his draft stock. But the question in Santa Clara does not have to be whether he is a perfect prospect. The question is whether there is a real tool there to develop. And honestly, this roster needs to leave room for that kind of fight. A healthy Nick Bosa changes the ceiling of the defense. Mykel Williams coming back changes the conversation. Romello Height, picked in the second round, is going to get his shot. But nobody should be handed comfort after a 20-sack season. Kamara will have to fight just to make the roster, and that is the exciting part. If he flashes in camp, if he pushes veterans, if he wins reps against backup tackles and proves that his college motor travels to the NFL, then the 49ers need to listen to the field. Sometimes the expensive answer misses. Sometimes the forgotten answer shows up hungry. Now the risk changes. The first story was about a player trying to break into the NFL through the side door. This one is about a veteran who has already proven he can make an impact, already created problems for defenses, already carried real respect with his name, and now might be at that point in his career where the right fit matters more than the size of the contract. Darren Waller is set to be an unrestricted free agent in 2026 after signing a 1-year deal with Miami. And the signals out of there suggest the Dolphins probably will not bring him back. There is no official 49ers move for him, but as someone watching this contender window every day, I can say this easily: John Lynch should at least be monitoring it. Because Waller is not just some depth tight end. Even after the highs, the injuries, and the stops and starts in his career, the physical profile is still rare. 6'6", wide receiver movement, big target radius, middle of the field threat, real value near the end zone. In 2025, even while being limited to 9 games with the Dolphins, he put up 24 catches, 283 yards, and 6 touchdowns. That is obviously not full season star volume, but 6 touchdowns in 9 games tells you one thing: when the field gets tight, he can still become an answer. And that is exactly where I look at the 49ers. George Kittle is still the soul of that position, the emotional engine, the nasty blocker, the player who changes the geometry of the offense. But after a torn Achilles in the playoffs, San Francisco cannot treat depth like a luxury. They need strategic protection. They need a plan that does not force Kittle to be everything all the time, right away. And Waller, on a short deal, could give Brock Purdy a big target without forcing the offense to change its identity. Imagine Shanahan with 2 tight ends who can actually catch. Imagine play action with Kittle holding the defense, Waller attacking the seam, McCaffrey pulling a linebacker, and Purdy getting a clean window on the second level. Imagine the red zone, where every yard turns into a fight, with a target that size forcing a safety to pick his poison. That is the kind of move that does not need to win March headlines to win a game in December. The point is price, health, and role. If Waller wants big money, a long deal, and guaranteed spotlight, forget it. But if the market cools, if he accepts a smart role, if the body is ready, then the conversation changes. The 49ers do not need to collect famous names. They need to find small advantages that keep the window alive. And a 6'6" advantage in the end zone? Sorry, Niners faithful, but I am making that call today. And then comes the image that might look small if you are just scrolling through the news, but for anyone who lives with this team every day, it carries real weight. Mykel Williams working on a side field during rookie minicamp. It was not a full practice. It was not some big triumphant return. It was not him destroying a blocker. It was mobility work, resistance work, about 30 minutes away from the main part of practice. But after what this defense went through, seeing Williams moving already changes the mood in the room. His rookie season ended in Week 9 with an ACL injury and a lateral meniscus injury in his right knee. And that hurt San Francisco twice, because the plan was for Williams to help anchor a rebuilt defensive line. The team needed youth, power, pressure, fresh legs next to Nick Bosa. Then Bosa went down with an ACL injury too, Williams went down, and the pass rush became a shadow of what it was supposed to be. The result was brutal. 20 sacks, worst in the NFL. So when Noah Furtado of the San Francisco Chronicle reports that Friday's work looked like a promising development as Williams prepares for training camp in July and August, I do not read that like some random medical note. I read it like the first crack of light. A defense that spent months without answers is starting to see a chance to get its body, depth, and threat back. But this is where the fan base has to be grown up while still being passionate. John Lynch said back in March that Bosa and Williams are both doing really well and should be ready for camp, maybe in a ramp-up type of situation. That is encouraging. But it does not mean Williams will be at peak form when the season opens. Bosa is probably further along in the timeline because he got hurt earlier. Williams may require more patience. But patience is not a lack of ambition. Sometimes it is exactly what protects the ambition. If the 49ers want a defense that is alive in December and January, there is no point pushing a talented second-year player into a reckless workload in August just to calm fan anxiety. What I want to see is clean progress, stronger movement, trust in the knee, gradual work, then contact, then consistency. Because if Williams comes back well, the defensive board breathes. Bosa is not alone. Romello Height does not carry unfair pressure right away. Kamara, if he fights for space, enters a healthier competition. And Raheem Morris, who we are getting to right now, gets pieces to build real aggression. And I want to hear from you in the comments. With Mykel Williams, would you rather see total patience even if he starts slow, or do you want the 49ers to speed things up if he is cleared in camp? And now we get to the point that ties almost everything together. Raheem Morris speaking for the first time as defensive coordinator of the 49ers. Because it does not matter how much we talk about Kamara, Bosa, Mykel Williams, Romello Height, pass rush, and recovery if this defense does not have a clear voice leading the process. Players need talent, yes, but a contender defense also needs command, standards, communication, and an identity that holds up when Sunday gets ugly. Robert Saleh, leaving after just one season in his second run, left San Francisco once again searching for stability in a major seat. And that is why the Morris hire makes sense in a lot of ways. He has been a head coach. He has been a defensive coordinator. He won a Super Bowl as the Rams' defensive coordinator with Sean McVay. And he has old ties with Kyle Shanahan from their time in Washington and Atlanta. That is not just resume fluff. That cuts down noise. Shanahan knows how Morris thinks, how he leads, how he communicates, how he prepares. In a franchise that cannot waste months translating internal language, that familiarity has real value. But what caught my attention most was the word Morris chose: obsession. He said that when coaches are truly committed to each other, the central thing is an obsession with football. And that lands right in line with what Shanahan has always demanded inside the building. It is not just working hard, it is living the details. It is offensive coaches talking with defensive coaches. It is Mick Lombardi crossing ideas. It is Matt Eberflus, Jerry Gray, Chris Kocirek, and younger assistants trying to build a room that thinks football all the time. To me, that is contender culture. Now let's be real. Morris is not Saleh with a different badge. The defensive philosophies are different, and fans are going to feel that. Maybe in the calls, maybe in the variations, maybe in how he protects the secondary or creates pressure. But that difference does not have to be scary if it comes with clarity. What cannot happen is the defense turning into a confused experiment while the offense tries to carry the season. Morris has to step in, organize, adjust fast, and get this unit playing with confidence. And there is an emotional layer here that I think is huge. After a defense broken by injuries, embarrassed by sack production, and tired of constant coordinator resets, the 49ers need a voice that says, "Enough surviving, let's start imposing again." Morris arrives with experience, a relationship with Shanahan, and championship weight. Now he has to turn all of that into Sundays, because for San Francisco, continuity is not comfort, it is ammunition. At the end, today's message is simple. The 49ers are not looking for comfort, they are looking for answers. Kamara is trying to turn being overlooked into a real chance. Waller shows up as that veteran idea that might look small on paper and massive in the red zone. Mykel Williams gives a sign that sparks hope, but also demands smart patience. And Raheem Morris walks in speaking the language this building understands: obsession. Now the pressure is putting it all together before the season charges a heavy price. If you really live with this team, subscribe to the channel, turn on the bell, and come back for the next video, because Santa Clara is not standing still.